Hello, it's Jamie J. I am the founder, CEO, and shareholder of Bottleneck Distant Assistance. This is Live with Bottleneck. I'm your host, and we help stop the bottleneck in your business by talking about really cool things, different ideas, different strategies, different concepts that you can take and implement to make your business and your life a little bit better by identifying those areas of need. And so I'm happy to talk with Scott Drake today. So stay tuned. We're coming on. Whether you're watching on LinkedIn, Facebook, or YouTube, please feel free to chime in with your questions. If I don't get to them during our conversation today and something you want to reach out on Scott about, I'll definitely be able to put you in touch with him or at least get the answers back from Scott. We're going to be showing how to get in touch with Scott all throughout the conversation today. If you're on Facebook, if you go to StreamYard.com/Facebook, you can then enter your questions, your comments, or suggestions live, and I'll show them on the screen. Other than that, I'm going to go ahead and get started today. So yeah, let's take off. This is our last show of 2021. Wow. Crazy, crazy. Hello. It's Jamie J here, CEO of Bottleneck Distant Assistance and host of Live with Bottleneck, where we help solve the bottleneck in your business and your life. And today I'm going to be talking with Scott Drake. So pretty excited about that. We're going to be talking about delegating tasks versus delegating problems. Scott's the founder of Jump Coach, and he's a sought-after consultant and trainer who made every mistake when rising through the leadership ranks. After seeing emerging leaders on his teams repeating the same mistakes, he set out to find a simpler and faster way to grow leaders. When he couldn't find a shortcut, he invented one. I already like Scott. He and I are going to get along great. Quit repeating yourself, right? So without any further ado, please allow me to introduce you to Mr. Scott Drake. How are you, sir?
I'm good, Jamie. How are you doing today?
Thank you so much for making me your last spot of the year.
Man, I'm so happy. I'm so looking forward to 2021 has really been a good year, but I'm really excited to get into 2022 as well.
Yeah, this is fantastic. I'm pretty dang excited as well. And I'm excited to hear what you're going to be talking about today, because delegating tasks versus delegating responsibilities. There's a thin line there, but very important one. And I thought before we jump into that, maybe you could tell us a little bit more about who you are and how you got to where you're at, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, sure. So my background is in tech. I started out life as a computer programmer and kind of always wanted to move into the leadership ranks. I always liked the idea of being in control and being able to make decisions and some of those things that you think leadership is about until you get into leadership and you realize it's not. But about 10 years into my career, I started my own development shop. So I was a small business owner for about 7 years with that venture, went back into the corporate world for about 7 years. And then earlier in 2021, jumped back out into my own venture again. And really the big thing was I struggled in leadership. I struggled to delegate. And I really struggled to understand, how do I work through others to get things done? And what it caused me was disengagement on the team, and it caused burnout for myself, right? So when the leaders behind me, I started seeing them burning themselves out, being unable to delegate, being unable to work through others to get things done. I thought there's got to be a better way to do this. So that's really where I embarked on a research project and came up with some techniques and ways and things that I teach today that really help people delegate better and work through others to get things done.
I can't wait to learn what some of those techniques are. So when we talk about the difference between what we said here, delegating tasks versus delegating responsibilities, what would you consider delegating problems, I should say? What's the difference between tasks and problems in your eyes?
Yeah, so work really breaks down into two forms. There's what's called routine work, which is often has processes built around it. And when you're delegating tasks, you're delegating either a process or a part of a process that you or somebody else has designed in the past. So you're really, it's often very measurable, it's often very predictable, and you're thinking about it in the context of efficiency. It's, I have this thing that needs to get done, and we're processing this widget the same way most of the time, and I'm gonna delegate this off to somebody else to let them do this. And coming up through the Industrial Revolution, like a lot of us, that's the only way we think about management. We think about everything through the lens of efficiency. And so that's really kind of that side of delegation. But there's a lot of work that is not routine, that is creative, that is innovative. And it is not possible to be efficient. And it is not, even if you do it yourself, you're not efficient. So where we really struggle in that delegation is when we have to give somebody a problem and we don't accept that we've got to build in learning loops and we got to do these other things around it, then we struggle to delegate, and we often lose patience, and we struggle to get value out of working with other people. So it's really understanding that there are two types of things that we delegate: routine work versus creative work, and that we have to do them in a different way, and we have different expectations on ourselves when we do it.
I absolutely love that. Thank you for breaking that down. Expectations has a lot to do with this, right? Expectations. Yeah. Everybody else has different learning curves. And even though they're problems, something that maybe it's a problem for a task that hasn't been documented yet.
Yep.
Right. And there has to be some give and go, some input and some data to be able to research something before you can kind of take all of that information into your perspective, document it, and then schedule a time and present it back to whomever that may be. And hey, what do you think? Kind of deal, right?
Yeah. So I mean, just think about how you deal with irregular work, right? Think about how you deal with the things that like this morning, I updated my books. I went to my 2 or 3 different bank accounts. I downloaded data, put them in my spreadsheet, right? That's a fairly routine thing that I just do, and I don't even have to think twice about doing it. But then I'm also sending out a couple of sales emails, right? And even though I do that pretty regularly, you have to stop and you have to go, what is my process for this? What am I doing? I'm actually kind of thinking about what I want to say, and then I might outline it a little bit, and I might draft it, and then I might sleep on it and come back tomorrow with new ideas and better ideas because I can get that focus and diffuse thinking, right? So I go through this, while even there's a process there, it's very unpredictable, right? Is one draft going to be enough, or am I going to have to go through 3 drafts? Because I have to learn as I'm going through it. Right? I'm not being efficient even when I'm doing it myself. But you take that same type of task, and now I give it to somebody else, and I do it with the idea that they're going to get it perfect in 1 or 2 drafts, or that it's not going to have to go through this same learning cycle. Then they get confused because they're thinking about it as efficiency, and then you're not doing a good job leading them. So you really have to set that expectation when you start that we're going to have this learning curve. We're going to go through some learning cycles, and that is okay. And we're going to build in check-in points and do something. So those some of the things you have to do when you're delegating problems that you don't necessarily have to do when you're delegating tasks.
Ooh, I just had a good question as you were talking through that. How do you convey or communicate expectations without really knowing how long something may take or how many iterations something may take?
So I think you just have to say exactly what you just said. It's like, look, we have this problem we need to solve. We have this thing we need to do, and I'm not sure how we're going to do it. Right? Isn't that fun for you? Right? People love to solve problems. Right? People get great satisfaction from solving problems. Right? I don't know how we're going to do this. Right? But I know that we're trying to go here. Right? We're trying to get this thing done, and this is what I understand about the success criteria right now. But what I need you to do first is just go think about it and come back with some thoughts or ideas around it. Like one of the examples I use, and I'll shift this over to be more hockey centric because I know you're a hockey guy. But let's say you collect some vintage hockey sticks and you're going to loan them out to a museum in Canada, right? The Hockey Museum up in Toronto, right? Shipping your vintage hockey sticks is probably not something you do regularly, so you have no processes around it. Right. So you're going to, if you wanted to delegate that problem to somebody else, hey, we've got to get them up there and they can't get damaged when they do it. How would we do that? Well, you just set them off on a project to say, go research these and give me some options, come back with some options. And when they come back with some options, what's going to happen is then you're going to be able to start getting more clear on the success criteria. right? Does cost become a factor? Does time become a factor? Does risk become a factor? Like, what are those things that emerge that cause you to maybe want to make different decisions? And at that point, at that one, you can give them some feedback. Then they brainstorm some options. They come back with some options. You can discuss it, give them some feedback, choose an option. Then they can plan it, right? So you can go through these steps, but you have to set the expectation at the outset that these steps exist, and that I'm not going to judge you on efficiency. I'm going to judge you on, we're going to get to this end result together.
You know what? I like that too. I have a habit of not setting deadlines. I don't like that word deadlines, but estimated time. Like, when do you think this project could be completed? And in the beginning, they're like, oh, I'll do it right away. I'll do it right away. And then I found out I was actually causing more stress than needed. And so I started being, okay, I want an estimated time as to when you think you might be able to finish it. But just think it through. And if you don't know, just say, I don't know yet, but I think I can get you an answer by this time. And that way we know things are continuing to move forward. And I felt that that's really helpful. And it also reduced a lot of stress on whoever I was delegating that task to.
Yeah. A lot of times
you do stuff like that.
Yeah, a lot of times what I'll do is we'll take that hockey stick example. I'll say something like, go spend 4 hours and just research it, right? And then come back and teach me what you've learned, right? So I will actually say, here's my expectation on how much time and what to do, and then come back and we'll talk about it again. And then once we know that, then I can say, you know what, I don't like those options. Let's spend another 4 hours researching it. Or, so you can set some expectations like that I tend to like to do things along that line, to say, here's how much time I think is worth spending on it right now. And so instead of putting that pressure on them, right, I'm number one, not asking for the whole task. I'm asking for just a part of it. But then I'm taking that pressure on myself, right? And that tends to help them do better work and to be more open and to really just do better work.
I couldn't agree more. You're a leadership coach, right?
Yep.
You help teach leadership.
Yep.
And as you said in the very beginning of this conversation, a lot of us take on leadership roles, thinking that it's one thing, but it's something totally different. Or as we're going through our leadership journey, maybe we started out as a solopreneur, entrepreneur, and now we're growing, and all these other things are hitting us, and we're trying to get all of this juggling. I couldn't think of a better topic to discuss than delegation and understanding what that delegation is. I will tell you, I'm in the business of delegation. That's what I do, both for myself and for our clients. It's all about delegation. And I find more often than not, the leaders out there that are trying to secure our services are still having a really hard time knowing what and how to properly delegate. Do you find that when you're teaching all of these leaders on how to be a better leader?
Yeah, it's extremely hard, right? It's extremely hard. It is where most people, I think there are about 10% of people who just kind of have the right mindset naturally and can be good leaders. And about 10% of people have some emotional or psychological issue that prevents them from developing the compassion or the ability to work with other people, right? But the other 80% of us, right, we can get there. It's just we're not born that way. And it really does come down to the idea of recognizing that a lot of times we want our way to be right? As we're coming up through the ranks, we're trying to stand out by being the expert and by having the answers and by solving all the problems. And we are rewarded for efficiency, and we think about everything in the lens of efficiency. But then when you start working through others to get things done, it's never going to be as efficient as if you were doing it yourself, right? That's one of the hard ones to get over, right? It's I'll just do it myself because I can just get it done, right? But if you do that with 10 things and each of those take 4 hours, then you just wasted 40 hours. But if you could have delegated those things off to 3 people, sure, it may have taken them more hours, but collectively, but it would have saved you a ton of time. So you have to get over that efficiency piece.
And not only that, Scott, I want to touch on that really fast. Yeah. Oh, I can just do it faster myself. Just let me do it. I'll go. Yeah. Right. You can do that right in the beginning, but eventually, because that's what they're going to be focused on, they will become more efficient than you will. And eventually they will improve that process. In my opinion, I've seen it happen over and over again. But the other thing is too, Scott, I don't want to know right now, and people can go to your website, jumpcoach.com, to learn more, but you probably charge a certain amount that's higher than what you would pay an assistant or somebody that you were delegating a task to. Would that be fair to say?
Who would delegate what? Who would
If
pay more?
you
Yeah.
yourself were
Yeah.
delegating a task, say, to your assistant or to another person in your organization, are you paying them as much as you're charging the client? Do you understand what I'm saying?
No, and I'm also not paying them as much as I'm charging for myself, right? I mean, it's my
That's
time
my
is more
point.
valuable. Yeah,
That's my
my time
point.
is much more valuable than their time.
Exactly. So why
Yes.
would you spend your time
Yes.
on something that someone else can take care of? And by the way, probably really enjoys doing that
Yes.
maybe you don't get as much energy out of, wherein you could be spending some time up here generating the income that you're destined to generate, right?
Yeah.
Like, so
My
don't.
goal is my goal is to spend my time solving at least $10,000 problems, right? So when
Yes.
I have these $100 problems or $1,000 problems, I would rather find somebody else who can do them so that I am free to keep working on these $10,000 or $100,000 problems, right? That's really where we need to be focused as leaders. But when we won't get out of the weeds, right, or when we can't get out of our own way, right, and just let things be a little bit less efficient than if I had just done it myself, or give up that need for controlling everything, right, then we can get a lot more done. And that's the only way we're really going to scale. That's the only way we're really going to scale is to let go. And there's so many of the great books on entrepreneurship, whether it's stuff like Clockwork or the E-Myth or EOS and some of those things. That's really one of the big transition points for entrepreneurs as they move into really running companies instead of just being solopreneurs, is they've got to learn to let go. And that's one of the big things that we try to help people do.
It's hard as heck.
It is.
This is and it's shameless plug. I'm going to do it. Quit repeating yourself. But that's exactly what we're talking about. Like, that's exactly what it is. I am so on board with what you're saying right now. And I have to say that's probably the number one hardest thing for someone to do, is someone to let go, because it's their baby. It's something that you created, I've created, they've created, we've created this thing, and oh my gosh, don't mess this up, right? There's a certain way that this needs to be done. But the second you kind of say, okay, I'm going to trust in the fact that we can create this system by saying, hey, I don't really know what to do yet, but let's figure this out together. Trust in that process, and eventually documentation will give you the confidence to delegate even more responsibility. But I think taking that first step, just like going into the business of entrepreneurism. I know a guy who was a national boxing champion, and he says he was just as scared starting his business as when he stepped into the ring. It's pretty scary.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So what else do you think prevents us from delegating tasks like this or delegating problems?
I'm trying to think where to go with that one. I think the big enemies of problem solving would be perfection, right? We have some idea in our head that this thing has to be perfect, but it's our idea of perfect, right? It's not even what the market wants or the customer wants or what would actually be good. It would be that this my way of doing something is perfect, right? So that's one. I think some other ones that can become challenges is when you see different success criteria. Like, I in my head am thinking mid quality, and whoever I delegated this problem to is thinking high quality, right? And so there's things where when we have different success criteria, then we end up with the solutions that we're not happy with, right? So there's some things like that. It's one of the things I joke around a lot is that my job as an executive became to make sure that there was alignment and to get agreement on alignment. It was really about all those standards and quality and risk and all those things that people were coming at things from different directions, and thus there was the conflict, and they weren't producing quote unquote good work. And it was just all because they had different standards in mind or were working toward different goals. So it's really getting clear that what the success criteria is, what outcome is, and then again, you're not going to hit it on the first shot, right? You're gonna take 5 shots. It's going to go through some learning loops. So you got to build that into your process, and that becomes the goal, not not some perfect, efficient solution that just isn't possible with creative work.
Would you say that vision has something to do with something as small as a single task or a single problem?
I think every task should be tied back to a bigger vision. So I think, again, your organization exists for some purpose, and literally everything you're doing in that organization ties back to that vision. So, and then you obviously have different, smaller steps that you're taking to get there. But yeah, I think that is the one thing that a leader has to do. Everything else can be delegated, right? You got to set the vision, but then success criteria and standards and processes and all of that stuff can be delegated. Somebody else can figure that stuff out. But again, they're going to do it iteratively over multiple passes. They're not going to get it perfect on one shot, right? So that's the one thing a leader has to do, is set the vision. Everything else can be delegated.
Gotcha. That makes a ton of sense, actually. So we're coming, out of respect for your time.
Sure.
We're coming towards the end of this particular episode, but I wondered if you could tell us a little bit more about exactly what it is you do, where people can find you to learn more about you.
Yeah. So what I built for, again, what I saw was the leaders coming up behind me were frankly wrecking my teams because they didn't know how to delegate. They didn't know how to work through other people in a healthy way. And it was something that's just going to take them years to learn, right? It took me years to learn it. And so what I was looking for and what I couldn't find was a shortcut. It was, how do we accelerate this transition from being the expert who does it all to being a leader who can delegate and work through others in a healthy way? Right. And so what I built is an accelerator program, and I call it Leadership Accelerator Program. And it's offered two ways. It's on demand, which is 3 short lessons, 3 lunch-sized lessons, and 9 developmental assignments. So the developmental assignments help you practice what you learn in the lessons, but it's really intended to be something that somebody can do on their own over a period of a few months. But it will help them really understand what leadership is, and then adopt the right mindset, because it's all about the mindset first. And then really understand the full scope of what it means to be a leader. Like, you go to most leaders and you say, how do you know you're doing a good job as a leader? And most leaders are just going to scratch their head and go, I don't know. I've thought about that as a computer programmer, but I hadn't really thought about what does it mean to be a great leader? As how do I measure that? So we actually give them a scorecard, and that scorecard will help them develop over time and really fill all their gaps and become what we call complete leaders. So yeah, so that the bulk of our work is through that accelerator program. And we do, like I said, there's an on-demand version, there's a coached version. So if people are trying to get their heads around this stuff and are trying to really understand how do I work through others, that's what we built this program to do.
Wow, that's fantastic. I think it's such a needed resource. I don't know about you, but I would classify myself with you. You said us other 80% are not, natural leaders. I am not a natural leader. I have some ideas and some things that I wanted to do, but I had really no idea how to get there, and growing and doing this and now this. And I didn't understand by some of the actions that I took would affect others in either positive and or negative ways. And you just don't know that until you kind of go through there. And to have a guide or a compass, in essence, a Scott, to guide you in that direction, really, really, really can help you out. So where is someone at in their current position or current life trajectory? Where are they in their life, in their business, where it would benefit them most to say, hey, Scott?
Yeah, I think it's anywhere from an aspiring leader, somebody who says, hey, in the next 18 months, I would like to move into a leadership position, either in my role, or I'm an entrepreneur and I'm at that point where I am going to start, I've got to start working through others. I can't keep doing all this stuff myself, right? Then those are really going to help. And we also work with a lot of mid and even later state leaders that are looking to fill their gaps, right? It's again, it took me 10 years. So you may be 6 or 8 years and you just feel like I may not know it all, right? There may be some gaps and I want to find the gaps. And that's part of what this accelerator program does, is it helps them see their gaps. And then the third, so that's the second group. The third group that's really very helpful would be leadership teams. So as a team of leaders, right? If I'm at the point where I'm hiring my first leader, so I'm the manager and now I'm hiring another manager who's going to take on some of these things. What does that actually mean? And then how do we work together as a team of leaders collaboratively and from the same playbook, right? So we work really with everybody from those emerging leaders into, mid-career and into just teams of leaders to help them work better together.
And where can someone go to find out more about you?
Yeah, jumpcoach.com is the best place to go.
Jumpcoach.com is right there. Awesome. Well, Scott, is there anything else you would like to say before we wrap today?
No, I mean, man, it gets so much easier once you start working through other people. It's as an entrepreneur and as a small business owner, it's just so easy to fall into that trap of just wanting to do things. But man, it just gets easier once you can figure this stuff out. So whether it's through me, whether it's working with Jamie's crew, it just find a way to do it because it's just gonna make your life so much better.
Well, I would highly say go check out jumpcoach.com, get some good training. Once you have that training and a plan of action, then come back and see Jamie and Bottleneck's group. But I would encourage you very much. So one of the biggest things, and Scott, this is I really believe in what it is that you're doing. Many people come to us a little prematurely and they are just going crazy and they say, I just need somebody, just give me a rock star, just get them. Well, the biggest way for someone to fail is by not being prepared.
Mhm.
And some people want to get there a lot quicker. But sometimes there's shortcuts, but that's really getting a gray area with, especially for me. Like I've been doing this 15 years, right? So it didn't just happen. And I see so many people making those mistakes. I made them. You probably never made a mistake, Scott, but I've made plenty of them.
I made every mistake in the book.
And with us coming from tech backgrounds, it was really different, right? Yeah. But I mean, I guess maybe one last question. I wonder if you might be able to elaborate on shortcuts or something, because this is really important. People need some kind of a foundation in order to believe, in my opinion, in order to make that next step in leadership.
Yeah, so I think to me, the shortcuts come by taking away the false beliefs, right? The false beliefs are that I have to have all the answers, or that I have to set all these processes, or that I have to solve these problems before I can delegate them to somebody else. Or the false beliefs that they won't respect me if I don't have the answers, right? Sometimes you feel like as a leader, you're the leader because you have the answers, you're the most senior or whatever. And that so we're often afraid to show our gaps. We're often afraid to not be the expert sometimes, right? So that's what emerging leaders struggle with the most. And that's the transition point. It's really not about, if you look at a lot of the studies into leadership, it's not about a leadership style or your personality or some of those other things. It's really how you, where your ego is attached and how you view yourself as successful, right? And it's really, so the shortcut is to say, my success isn't based on my ability to do these things. My success is now based on my ability to work through others. So it's truly just making that decision, right? And then a lot of us already have some of the skills to do the stuff. It's not as much learning about skills as it is learning the different mindset. So that's what I would say. And one more thing I'll throw out there real quick.
Yeah.
You said there's some people that are just struggling. They don't know what to do. On my site, you can schedule a free consultation. Schedule a 30-minute and just say, hey, I heard you on Jamie's show and I'm not sure I'm ready for this and I'm struggling with that. Schedule 30 minutes with me. I'll jump on a call with you. I'm happy to do that. And see if what I'm doing can help you out, or if there's some other things that can help you out. I'd be more than happy to spend 30 minutes with you to do that.
I can't agree. Please go talk to Scott. Please, just questions on maybe what can be your next step. Just that consultation can be life-changing, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I will say one more thing too about the delegation, and then we could wrap up out of respect for your time.
I'm good.
One of the things that I realized early on was I was worried about telling my team that I didn't know something. And I thought, well, maybe they wouldn't respect me as a leader if I told them that. And I associated that with like confiding in them, which I don't do. I think there's a difference between confiding, and that's where I joined, a mastermind group of my peers or something like that, where we could have that kind of conversation. But I totally think it's okay to say, you know what, team, I don't know how to do this. Does anybody have any ideas? And I found that once I got over that fear of not knowing and finding out, by the way, I hire people if they can do 75% of the role, because that extra 25% is going to blow my mind on what they really are good at. Mm-hmm. And then you find, boy, they feel empowered. They know their voice is heard. And all of a sudden they're like, oh my gosh, have you thought of this? And they keep thinking of ideas. And you're like, wow, this is amazing. In all actuality, saying that you don't know something brings the rest of the team up, and they respect you, you respect them, respect all around. It's actually a very, very powerful thing in my opinion, because it shows a bit of vulnerability in human nature is to help someone who's a little bit vulnerable. And it's a mutual respect. I don't know. Do you have anything to say about that?
No, I do, because it's actually a really key point that we often want to show our competency as a way to earn the respect and trust of our team. But we have to recognize that our team is trying to use their competency to earn our respect and trust. And what happens if both parties are trying to outcompetent each other in an effort to earn respect and trust, you have a competency war, and nobody wins a competency war. Right. So as a leader, you have to say, I have other ways to earn the respect and trust of my team. It is through clarity. It is through compassion. It is through caring about them. It is through
Doing what
helping
you
them
say you're
grow.
going to do.
Yes,
Right?
it is by
Following
following
up.
through. Right. So there are other ways to earn their trust and respect, and leave competency to them. Right. Let them be more competent. Let them be the heroes of the story, and you're going to get a whole lot more out of them than you could have ever done by yourself.
Man, Scott, you're the man. Thank you. There's no way I could have said it any better. I really appreciate your time. Once again, jumpcoach.com. Love that name, by the way.
Thanks.
How'd you come up with the name?
Man, that's one I had on this wall behind me, about 30 different ideas, and that one I found, and I just kind of liked how short it was. Jump, I like jump. I like the idea of you're taking a step forward.
Yeah,
And
I like it.
yeah,
That's
so no, it
awesome.
worked out. But no, I really appreciate you having me on. I appreciate the opportunity to come and chat with you and your audience. I
Thank
enjoyed
you
these
so much.
conversations. This is something I've been researching for so long and talking about for so long. I love talking about it, so I'm happy to do that.
I can definitely tell you know your stuff, man. And thank you for your gift of sharing it with the world. And thank you for, again, taking your last meeting of the year here on Live with Bottleneck. I really appreciate it. Can you hold on just for a quick moment? And I'll go ahead and
Dude,
wrap
I've
up.
got nowhere to be. Yep.
Oh, fantastic. Scott Drake, jumpcoach.com. I cannot recommend enough. So I talk to a lot of coaches, as you may know. I am partial to Scott's mindset. And this is no disrespect to any of the other coaches. It just seems like a lot of what he is saying aligns with the way that we work here at Bottleneck. And many of the companies that approach us at Bottleneck to help them stop the bottleneck in their company, it's a little premature, or they don't quite understand the art of delegation. And while we can still work with you, I always like to recommend people reaching out to coaches or reaching out to somebody that can kind of get them in a position to delegate. Now, one thing I will say is when you're thinking about delegating, or when should you think about delegating, you should think about delegating from day one. And that doesn't mean you're ready to hire anybody or anything like that. It just means that you're preparing yourself for down the road, for when things start getting really busy. Go read E-Myth. You will see what I'm talking about if you haven't read that book by now. E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber. And that's one of the books that Scott was talking about. Go talk to Scott. He is offering a free consultation. Oh my gosh, take him up on it. So go reach out to them if you're considering this. If you feel the tinge of doing something in a world that you created based on your role, and some of it is not giving you energy, or it's draining you of energy, you need to go figure out a way to overcome that through delegation, because you can excel at the things that you really enjoy and love and have fun with. And the more opportunity you give yourself to do things that take away from your energy, from your goal, from your drive, the worse you're going to feel about life in general. So that's my little overview here, talking with Scott. I want to kind of wrap up here. If you want to go watch this video, you can go learn how you can break through the bottleneck in your business today by going to Bottleneck.Online/BTV or /JustTV. That'll redirect you to the YouTube channel. Well, please subscribe to the YouTube. We have hundreds of videos there. And as I was talking about, the book is out now called Quit Repeating Yourself: How Today's Leaders Are Using Systems and Processes to Grow Their Business the Right Way. The Scott Drake way. We're also really excited about Team C. So if you haven't heard about that yet, they're raising $30 million for every dollar they raise. They're taking out a pound of trash from our oceans, rivers, and beaches. They've already raised over $20 million. Team C's, you can go to teamcs.org to learn more. I'm very passionate about this project. It's closing on the deadline of January 1st at midnight. So please go to teamseas.org to learn more and donate. It's a really, really good cause. Today we were talking to Scott Drake. He's the founder of Jump Coach. We talked about delegating tasks versus delegating problems. And coming soon, that's today, sorry, previously on Live with Bottleneck, we talked to Ed Everts. He was the founder and president. He is the founder and president of Excellius Leadership Development. And we talked about consulting firms experiencing bottlenecks and how to navigate them in terms of growing a company. So without any further ado, I'll go ahead and wrap up today. Thank you so much. As of the time of this recording, this is the last episode of 2021. We will be back Wednesday, January 5th, 2022. Wow, it's crazy. Have a good one. Remember, create your own ripple. Have a good one. We'll talk to you soon.